Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea that explains how we learn some of our most complex skills, not from a textbook, but just by watching the world around us.
I mean, think about it for a second. Take something like driving a car. Long before you ever got behind the wheel for your first lesson, you probably already knew the basics, right? You knew about steering and the gas and the brake. So how did you know that?
Exactly. You learned just from being a passenger for years and years, watching other people do it. This super simple but really profound process, well, that's the core idea behind a huge psychological concept called social learning theory.
So, how does this actually work inside our brains? It all kicks off with this core concept known as observational learning.
This is basically learning indirectly. We see what someone else, a model, does, we watch what happens to them because of it, and then we just kind of store that little piece of information away for later.
Now, the psychologist who really cracked this code was Albert Bandura. And he didn't just point this out, he actually broke it down into a really clear four-step process for how this learning actually happens.
Bandura laid this whole thing out like a recipe for learning, It's got 4 essential ingredients that have to happen in order. So let's break them down one by one.
Okay, first up, attention. This one sounds pretty obvious, but it's crucial. You can't learn what you don't notice. So step 1 is just tuning in. You've got to actively watch the model and see what they're doing.
All right, after you've paid attention, your brain needs to save the file. This is retention. You create these little mental pictures, or what scientists call cognitive codes, of what you just saw, and you hold on to it so you can pull it up later.
Now we get to reproduction. This is the, okay, I'm going to try it myself phase. But, and this is a big but, your ability to perfectly copy the action really depends on your own skills. I mean, you can watch an Olympic gymnast all day long, but that doesn't mean you're going to suddenly stick a perfect landing, right?
And finally, we get to maybe the most important step, motivation. Because you might watch and remember 1,000 different things, but you're only going to act on the ones you're actually motivated to do. Without that motivation, the first 3 steps are really just data collection. Nothing happens.
So what is it that drives that all-important 4th step, motivation? It's not just about, wanting a prize or something. It really comes down to one incredibly powerful factor inside all of us.
Bandura had a name for this, self-efficacy. And in the simplest terms, it's just your belief in your own ability to succeed at something. It's that little voice in your head that says, yeah, I can do this, or nope, no way.
But where does that I can do this feeling even come from? I mean, it's not just random, right? Bandura found that it's actually built from 4 main sources.
So our belief in ourselves is this kind of cool mix. It's partly from our own past wins and losses, partly from watching people who are like us succeed, partly from other people encouraging us, and this is a big one, it's how we interpret our own feelings. Are those butterflies in your stomach excitement, or are they crippling anxiety?
Okay, so this isn't just some abstract theory. This idea of self-efficacy has huge real-world consequences. It shapes everything from how we do in school to how we're influenced by the media.
And look at this difference in belief creates this massive fork in the road. When someone with high self-efficacy fails, they tend to think, I just didn't try hard enough. That's something they can change. But someone with low self-efficacy often thinks, I just don't have the talent for this, which they see as totally fixed. And that mindset, it changes everything.
Now, one of the most studied, and let's be honest, most controversial applications of social learning theory is the link between the media we watch and how we actually behave.
As early as 1972, a huge landmark study by a researcher named Ahrens and his colleagues started to draw a scientific line connecting a kid's exposure to violence in media with aggressive behavior later on in life.
So what a lot of this research suggests is that kids can absolutely learn from these media models. When they watch aggressive characters over and over, their own tendency to copy those actions can go up. It's almost like they're learning a script for how to be aggressive. Okay, let's wrap this all up. What's the big takeaway from this really powerful theory about how we learn from the world all around us? Look, understanding this theory is kind of like getting a user's manual for a part of your own brain. It really empowers you to see how your environment, the people you watch, and your own beliefs are actively shaping what you do every single day.
And that kind of leaves us with one last really important thought.
The people, the characters, the media we let into our lives, they're way more than just entertainment. They're all potential teachers. So the real question is, what are they teaching you?